Well, guys, it looks like Gibson has bought into Mesa Engineering. I'm going to tell you why that's terrible. Stay tuned. What is up, you guys? It's your boy Luis Torres, and yes, the rumors that have been going around regarding Gibson either buying Mesa Engineering or some kind of a financial transaction with the company. It has been confirmed. Percentage-wise, it looks like Gibson has purchased 50% of Mesa Engineering, which is great for Mesa. So they end up with either shares of whatever the parent company for Gibson currently have in their inventory, or it's just a distribution kind of scenario where Gibson, now working with Mesa, will now be able to utilize all of their contractual agreements with these music shops globally. So now Mesa has this huge distributor that can now issue out all of their gear. Here's the problem. As someone that worked for over 12 years on Wall Street in New York City at some of the biggest financial institutions on the planet, let me tell you why that's absolutely ridiculous. Before I start, I'm going to ask if you guys remember a little company known as Toys R Us. Okay, so let's go back, and I'm going to let you know what all of these scumbag companies really do that are equity firms. So a lot of these companies like Apollo Management, they'll go ahead and buy a company because they see the value in the inventory of toys or the inventory on the property that they currently own. And sometimes it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. What they're doing, and this is what everyone kind of hopes for, but is never the case, is that here's this equity firm that is worth billions of dollars, revenues billions a year, now buying Toys R Us. Great. So Toys R Us isn't going to go anywhere, considering the fact that Walmart is its biggest competitor. So Toys R Us, if you guys remember, if you were little kids around the time that Toys R Us was huge, they were the biggest toy store there is. They had to actually stop using that because Walmart was like, no, you're not. And they were like, you're right. So, so here is an equity firm that buys Toys R Us, and they're not looking. And I'm sorry, listen, if you feel that companies merging is a great opportunity as an investor, most of the time it is, because what they're planning on doing is packaging the company with other companies. For instance, let's say Geico, or even all these insurance companies. What a lot of these large insurance companies do, they will buy smaller insurance companies, bundle them together, and rip the value for themselves. So let's say if an equity firm buys a company for $100 million, they will package it and make it look great. They'll go to a financial institution and say, well, we bought this company for $100 million. They have about $250 million in potential assets, and they now ask for a $200 million loan, which looks great and sounds great if they're going to take that money to build the company, but that's never the case. What they usually do is they take that money and they allocate it to other investments that they're looking to do. So in the end, what ends up happening is these companies, dude, these are guys that are billionaires. Billionaires. They're not looking to make $10 million as a profit. They're looking to squeeze as much money as they can from these large names and take that money, use it in other investments, because for the most part, they tend to be, they tend to be these firms that they own so many different kinds of assets globally, whether it's property, whether it's other companies, whether it's an airline, a private airline like NetJet. So they're not looking to take that money and help Mesa Boogie. If they do, that's great. That's not really the intended purpose of why there's always, dude, and I say scumbags because, as someone that worked on Wall Street for years, just know that all of these financial institutions, they don't care about the little guy. They don't care about these smaller companies like Mesa. They're looking to take a company like Gibson, which was literally hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. They then bought it for a fraction on the dollar in hopes that they will throw money in the company and make it look healthier and do the same thing. Go to a financial institution and say, hey, things are healthier. Our bonds that we've issued have increased in their rating by Standard & Poor's or Moody's. So now that we're in a healthy position, we want to take out a loan for $300 million. They're not looking to take that money to make Gibson this huge, amazing company, because they know that the days of 1988 and every kid wanting a guitar have been long gone. There are more people that listen to metal, but far less than those that actually pick up an instrument and learn, because it's something ridiculous. It's like for every guitarist that picks up a guitar globally, it's something, I read it in some article, it's like 10% start playing or play for at least 2 years. And of that 10%, 1% of the initial number, so 10% and then 10%, still continue to play after 5 years. So if you are watching my channel and you still play guitar, just know of the amount of individuals that start playing guitar, 1% are you guys. That's how rare it is. Think about it. How many friends do you have that play guitar? And are good at it. And I'm not talking about someone that just has a guitar and never played it. So realistically, anticipating that there's going to be this huge boom of musicians, it's just never going to happen. It's just not. So that being said, what are these equity firms looking to do? They are ultimately, and this is just my opinion, and again, unless you have more years working on finance than I have, shut up. No, I'm joking, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I worked at Deutsche Bank as a bond trader. I used to trade $250 to $350 million a day, every day for years, for 5 hedge funds that had $10 billion under management. So unless you were at that level of the game, I'm probably a little more versed on how these equity firms kind of do things. I'll also add the fact that I dated a girl whose parents owned a large company that was bought out by an equity firm managed by Louis Bacon, who is a hedge fund manager in New York City. And they literally walked away with tens of millions of dollars after the sale. And they kind of really didn't do anything but took out a massive loan against the assets that they had now purchased. And, the guy's just now worth, hundreds of millions of dollars more than he did before. So in the end, as an investor, as someone who runs an equity firm, just know that in the end, they're just looking to make money. They don't give a shit that you have a stack of Mesa boogies. They don't. They're trying to figure out how can they go ahead and get funds from a financial institution based on the assets that they currently have. And by buying Mesa, even if it's just 50%, they have to go into Mesa's books and create some kind of a number that they can bring to a financial firm and say, hey, we own Gibson. We are worth $1.5 billion. We just bought this other company, and they revenue, let's just say, I don't know how much Mesa could possibly revenue a year, 25 million a year. And then project, because there's PE ratios. So they project how much that company's value is going to be in the next 2 or 5 years or 10 years. So now there's a number that they can go on and say, hey, Deutsche Bank, hey, Bank of America, hey, Mizuho, whichever financial firm you can think of, HSBC, they will now say, hey, we want a loan for 200 million, or if they want some kind of an equity, they'll figure out they wouldn't necessarily do a private placement, but they'll probably issue bonds, right? And then they'll say, then the overall risk doesn't fall on the firm, it falls on those bond holders. And for the most part, who holds the largest positions of bonds or equities? It's always financial institutions. It's always other banks that are out there. And so firms like Apollo Management, they don't care. They're trying to figure out how to make more money, but they're not necessarily there to grow Mesa the way you and I would possibly think that, if you had a company and I invested in your company, you're thinking, hey, I'm going to use this money to help my company. But what they're really doing is taking those funds and figuring out other ways to best utilize the new funds that they have in other areas, buying real estate, buying other equities, whether it's stocks or bonds or government securities like GO bonds, which are government obligation bonds. So ultimately, I don't think that it's good for Mesa. That being said, at this point, right, there's a few owners of Mesa. People can walk away from the deal, meaning, hey, Gibson has bought a 50% stake of our company. You know what? I'm done. I'm retiring. Let me get my millions and I'm going to go retire in Costa Rica. So is this a good transaction? Again, personally, I think they're just going to get ripped. And a perfect example of that is Toys R Us. And if you don't know the history of Toys R Us, Google it and learn exactly what the equity firm that bought Toys R Us actually did, which was super scandalous. Again, great for the shareholders and the owners of the company. But ultimately, dude, you have people that worked at Toys R Us for 30 years and it was almost like, hey, it is Thursday. Your last day is Friday. Thank you so much for all the years. We can't pay you for the back pay over the last 2 years or last 2 weeks, which by law they have to because they didn't end up giving anyone the 30-day grace period that legally they have to do. So they had to come up with hundreds of millions to pay everyone over the last few weeks that they didn't do. So it's scandalous, dude. So, good luck to Mesa. I hope things work out. Hopefully they ended up getting a good attorney that has worked with mergers and acquisitions that can relay to Mesa what this entails. And more importantly, what is it that Gibson, and not Gibson, because don't forget, Gibson isn't Gibson. It is owned by an equity firm that has done this throughout the years. This isn't something new that I'm just randomly, coming up with. This is something that they've always done. This is also something that other equity firms have always done, and it's just how it is. But if you don't know any better, right, you're going to be like, how much do you guys want to give me for a 50% stake ownership of my company? And you're sorting us out with distribution because you're Gibson? Sign me in. Dude, most people would. If I owned the company and I were able to sell a 50% stake and literally set up the future of my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and the great-great-grandkids that aren't even around yet, then most people are going to do that. So I totally understand why they would consider it and why they've done so. But as a consumer and someone that knows a little bit about the world of high finance, I don't think it's going to work out well for the company. What you're going to end up seeing is, and this is kind of another example, is if you remember how Crate as a company were back in the mid to late 80s, they were really good. Early 90s, they were still kind of okay. And then they went downhill from there. And that's a perfect example of where hopefully it wouldn't happen. But that's exactly what these equity firms end up doing. They'll end up cheaping out Mesa. They'll end up doing what PV eventually did, where Hartley was just like, I can't compete against everyone else. Yeah, you can. You just need to work smaller, work smarter, stop buying these multi-million-dollar factories where when you're in a niche market that's slowly decreasing, like you have to play it smart. You have to see what's potentially going to come down the pike 5, 10, or 20 years from now. And then Hartley just literally shipped everything to China. And now you have cheap amps by PV. And that's just how it is. So will we see Mesa amps being made in China? Probably so, which is sad. It's not going to happen from one year to the next. But, you know, if you understand how equity firms work and what they strive for, it's to have as much of a profit margin as they possibly can, and building them in the US at the ridiculous rates that people demand working here. Eventually they're going to say, you know what, guys, we have a guy that owns a factory in China. The guy's a billionaire, because of course it's all billionaires, not multimillionaires, not someone that has 800 million. We're talking about individuals in China that literally have $20 billion, and they're just like, what do I do now? You know what? There's a company called Gibson that bought another company called Mesa Engineering, and they're looking to maximize their profit margin, and I'm going to build a brand new factory, have it finished in 1 year, and I'm going to get that contract and start building rectifiers and your favorite Badlanders in China, and that's how it goes. So, guys, it is what it is. You know, the small guy is winning, the big guy is winning, and we end up with shit gear. So guys, hey, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, do so now. Hopefully this will help you understand how the mindset is of equity shareholders and owners of these firms. And again, like I said, you know, I can't stress that, you know, ultimately we end up being forced to buy cheap gear, and gear just ends up throughout the years going forward cheaping out from where it is now. So guys, thank you so much for watching. And as usual, I'll talk to you soon.